All right, listeners, welcome to episode 9 of the Real Takes Tennis podcast. We're right in the swing of the hard court season. It's been, for those of you who aren't following, I mean, Winston-Salem, US Open qualifying, Cincinnati, Toronto. It's been quite an electric month and a half, culminating in the greatest Grand Slam. I don't care what any of y'all say about Wimbledon being the greatest. Any place where you have to queue in order to get your tickets, I'm not about that. As you can
Damn.
just had to start it off like that. Fuck the prestige. Uh, I'm going to New York tomorrow, so I'm quite pumped to be able to watch the first round of the U.S. Open on Monday. Last year was absolutely electric, and if the bottom half of the draw is the first round, or is the first day, it's going to be a pretty electric day for me. So
Are
I
you
will
going
hobble.
multiple days though?
Yeah, I think what I'll do is probably go first day, and then I'll see what happens as the tournament goes out. Probably try and go either early, like Thursday of that week, or we'll just go send it and go like semis or finals or something. I mean, if there's Carlos and Novak in the finals, we might have to roll through. So
Drop the 10K.
yeah, I mean, well, not that much. I went to Medvedev, Nadal in 2019, was it? 2018, whatever, right? Like
That
one of
was
those
when
years.
Rafa tied or broke.
I think he broke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That
Yeah.
was huge to
That
watch
was
live. I
massive.
remember.
That was electric. So that, I mean, that was like a grand, and I was completely happy paying that because what this is what actually happened. Federer and Rafa were on opposite sides of the draw, and fourth round onwards, I was like, oh, Federer's gonna cream like whoever he plays. Can he because he played Dimitrov next, and I was like, okay, he's gonna beat Medvedev in the semifinals to get to the final. So I was like, okay, let me buy these tickets now just because like they'll go up really expensive. And of course, in classic fashion, Fed loses to Gregor. And
That makes no sense. Baby Fed beating Fed like in that stage.
dude, it was all bad. Yeah, I mean, even if he beat Gregor, I don't think
Mm,
he would have beaten
the way he
Daniel.
was playing. And yeah,
Yeah, no
Medvedev
way.
that year. Yeah.
So it was all bad, but yeah, I've just never I never was able to see Fed play like live in a real match. Like 2007, my dad and I went to Indian Wells, and he lost to Guillermo Cañas uh in the second
Oh
round.
my God, that is so unfortunate.
I mean, it was still cool, right? Like I saw Murray, Roddick, Novak, and Fed and Rafa, so it was still a good weekend. But I was like, dude, this guy
Dude,
just
I
does
gotta
not want
look
to
that guy up. That guy disappeared off the face of the planet,
face of the
just like
planet.
Guillermo
Yeah.
Coria. There are a couple of guys who just, a couple of these like South Americans and Spaniards, like you gotta wonder
Yeah.
what happened to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Kanyes was like good for those 2 weeks because he beat him in Miami, I think the week after, and then that's it. Just dropped off.
He was pretty filthy too on clay.
They were all, I mean, they were all nasty. Like that, I mean, that Argentinian like Nalbandian, Chela, Korea, like there or
Yeah,
Kanyes, Korea, like that Argentinian squad was nasty. Yeah, so
that's
it
too
should be
bad
a
you
good
didn't.
weekend.
Yeah, that's too bad you didn't get to watch Fed. In your defense, the one match that I got to watch Fed play live was Indian Wells, maybe 2011, 12. It was when he waxed Nadal 2 and 3
Oh
in
God.
1 hour.
Oh my
We
God.
spent so much money for those tickets. And
Yeah.
I was with let's say a Federer fan who
Okay.
thoroughly enjoyed it. But I was infuriated. I mean, I don't know how you can justify spending hundreds of dollars for like a, 58-minute or 63-minute match or whatever it was.
No, for sure. I
But
mean,
he
the only
played lights
lights out.
out.
Yeah.
Like that was
Yeah.
some of the. I mean, he was like swinging that stick like a lightsaber.
Yeah. No, I actually ended up seeing Fed live once, and that was that match for Africa. When he played with Bill Gates and Jack Sock, and I was like, dude, I like don't want to see Bill Gates play tennis. Like, I'd honestly rather see Federer lecture computer science. Like that might be like that
Yeah,
might like more amusing, but yeah, it was cool to see him live. So no, that's why like if Carlos and Novak play in the finals, like yeah, I might just have to send it and go for it.
send it, dude. One way or another, you're getting good matches. I mean, those fourth
Exactly.
rounders are. We're gonna get into it, but like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of potential.
Yeah, there's a lot potential for a lot of spicy matchups. I mean, the conditions like seem really like I mean, I love the humidity, so I think it'll be fun to like just watch in that environment and like the crowd's obviously like into it, so it'll be good. But yeah, I think like first and foremost, I want to start off by just recapping our episode last couple weeks ago with Vasil. I mean, it was honestly I really enjoyed talking to him about tennis and his life on the tour and whatnot. Just a personal side note, it was just cool to see that he's a very mature and eloquent dude for someone who's, I mean, he's 24, he's been on the tour for a little bit as well. And obviously compared to his brother, I mean, just so eloquent and so much more engaging to hang out with. Um,
Brutal.
yeah. But yeah, what'd you think about the chat?
I mean, the one thing that I'm going to start off with is anyone who ends up writing Basil's biography needs to get their MLA citation notebook out and ready because they're going to be citing the fuck out of RTT episode 8. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, we covered everything we covered the full origin story. And likewise, I thoroughly enjoy the conversation. I'm looking forward to keeping in touch. And I think this is a guy with tons of potential. And like you said, the most shocking thing was that level of maturity. You got to wonder how much of it came from the experiences, the fact that he was, playing, I mean, basically full time from such an early age. And I think you end up grappling with so many philosophical things when you decide to make that decision to go pro instead of going college. Because again, we've said you kind of are staring off the edge of a cliff, and it's not a it overnight it doesn't become a passion anymore. It becomes your job, and you got to reconcile like those two things. And I think he's done a really really good job of it, and hopefully we just wish him continued success.
No, for sure. I think on that point, one of the things that I personally just found really intriguing, which we talked about, was just his vision for what he like saw in his game at such an early age and even throughout is just very different from the mentality that we've seen a lot of our peers have, right? Like they're just using it maybe as like they like the game, they'll probably play post college and like maybe just recreationally, right? But he really saw a vision for like I think I have a chance to be really good in this and it needs to be like it he treated it as a job very early on, which is a very different. I mean that's the type of pressure that can really hurt a lot of people's careers because I mean for every one that makes it and believes in that there's like 15 that don't, right? And
Yep.
so I think like his ability to handle that, especially I mean he's the margins are so thin that he's going to eventually be in situations where it's 6-5 in the third, him serving for the match, right? And to not let those types of emotions get to you, I mean, I couldn't do it right now. There's no way. And so for him to be able to handle that, yeah, I think that's the part that I like the most.
I think another dope thing about him is just how he kind of gives credit where it's due,
Yeah.
and cites the importance of his family, his dad, his recognition of kind of the luck of it, but also kind of the mixture of skill and circumstance with being able to train full time at the USTA Academy and so being selected for that, being able to train with some of the top guys at the time. And I think that leads me to another interesting point of a conversation, which is, and it goes back to the blueprint episode as well, which is just how do you reproduce a situation like Vasil Kirkov? And it's so hard to kind of pick at what the explanatory variables are, but I think it was very interesting how he said, we've talked about big fish and small pond, small fish and big pond, and this was a guy who took a ton of losses, and he says that they were very important for him. So, there are multitude of ways to get to the top. You don't have to take that Serena approach of like limiting your tournaments and trying to win every match. And it shows that it also works to take some hard losses to not be the best and to develop all aspects of your game and ability to gut out wins. So I thought that was cool perspective.
For sure, especially it's even more impressive as like you can tell from all the stuff that he talked about, right? Like he still enjoys the game. He still enjoys like playing, even though it's his like full-time job. And one of the things I was just thinking about was When you were a junior, did your parents ever ask you to like, or tell you like, hey, if you want to do like a week in like this like Jose Higueras Academy or something like that, where you're just playing like every day, like you like go ahead, we're down to do it.
That's a good question. I mean, I definitely did want to play full time for a bit.
Yeah.
And I think it was, and my mom was actually down for it. I think it was my dad who really wanted me to focus on my education. And I'll tell you what, man, I think he was right. I don't think I had the talent that I think I had. And I think it would have been a huge risk. And I think it would have only led to disappointment and future insecurity. And I think that's something that Vasil talked about too, right? Which is some people are just delusional. And I think, the reality is when you're 12, you are delusional, right? You've got this
Yeah.
grand vision of holding the Wimbledon trophy, but there are very few that make it.
For sure. I mean, I didn't even mean it in the sense of like, okay, use it as a stepping stone to get you to professional tennis. I purely just meant like, see if you like it, see if you get better from it, right? Because that's the closest you get to training from that standpoint. Like,
We would always do full time in the summer at our
so
local
really,
academy. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So we would always do like the power blocks,
yeah,
6 hours a day. And you know what I found? And it's again interesting. This is vetted by Vasil.
yeah,
I found that I didn't get better from those, man.
yeah,
That's a real. I
yeah.
think the mindlessly hitting more balls and just training hard for the sake of saying that you train hard. It, it's I think an hour and a half a day where you're focusing on something, working on your serve, working on your return, maybe not even breaking a sweat sometimes. Like those practice sessions and different angles of approach can add up in a better way sometimes.
No, it's funny. Like I think after talking to him and even just our own intuition, right? Like it's come down to basically like three things that we should put more emphasis in, but we don't. And that's like a way that you can construct our practice sessions in order to like lead better results, right? It's like a focusing on the mind, like kind of recreating pressure situations, whether it be even basic drills, right? Like you have to make 10 in a row. I've done this with some people with like, some cousins and stuff who are like kids, right? And like on that ninth one, they're like, oh shit, like I gotta make this 10th one. That's like in a practice thing, right? That's like simple. Then there's serves and the returns, right? Like I think he also agreed. Like, and I mean, we're not even forgetting volleys, right? Like four
Yep.
things right there that you can add that we could have done to improve our game. So it was very interesting to hear him say like going back, he would actually have hit less balls than more because
Yep.
he found that like the incremental benefit he got from extra hours, it was more wear and tear than beneficial.
Yeah, and I think that's the case for again, different strokes for different
Yep.
folks. I think the
Yeah.
people who are uh, very elastic and flexible and strong and have less prone for injury, like go ahead, hit 10,000 balls, by the
Yeah.
time you're 15. Like that's a great strategy. But like for a lot of people, myself included,
Yeah.
uh, perhaps Vasil included, who are like maybe a little bit more prone to injury, like you got to manage that from an early age.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I loved kind of all aspects of his approach. I loved how his dad also took him out at 7 a.m. to train. I think there's something about morning work, whether it's literally homework, research, it's just a different space that your mind is in. And you've just come off like waking up and like you were just in this kind of semi-dream impressionable state. I find there's something about that state where if you can get yourself to train, there could be a benefit that people don't realize.
No, for sure. And I'm sure he's got more of those 7 a.m. workouts coming.
Oh yeah.
So no, it was really good to talk to him. I think it's funny, like we didn't even get to some of the questions that like we could have asked him in terms of winning Kalamazoo and like what that first round was like. I mean, we talked a little bit about him playing like Pavic and Marat, but what like going in the locker room was like, right?
Yep.
Seeing some of the guys on tour and just other like hooligan stories that he might be able to share about stuff that he's
Yep.
seen on the ATP tour.
Yep. And I'm certain there's going to be a round two with him at some point.
Yeah.
Another question that I was kind of curious about too was just in the backstory, one thing we missed, and maybe this was too personal, but just kind of like the immigration situation at that time and like how, his dad was able to get to the US. I'm always fascinated by those stories too. And
For
like what
sure.
kind of jobs they were working out there, how that how his community was like in Bulgaria. I think there are plenty of things we can go into to
Yeah.
continue the biography.
Yeah, continue the biography, and we're hopefully we'll be able to I'll be able to catch him if he gets the wild card. We're still waiting to hear about that. So that'll be good.
Either way, we're going to see him in
Tibby
October, though,
Run.
hopefully.
Yeah, that'll be good. Cool, awesome. Shifting gears a little bit. I mean, it's just been a really impressive couple weeks, couple months, I should say, for the hardcourt season. I mean, Carlos and Novak just put on an absolute show. It's funny, like I was literally thinking after that match, like for how impressive of a match it was and how close it was. At the end of the day, it's still like Cincinnati, right? Like no one's it's a Masters thousand, but even on the place of Masters thousands, like no one cares about Cincinnati that much. And so I was very like I changed my thought process a little bit because I mean you still saw Carlos crying after the match, right? And he's like, dude, like yeah, he cared about it. He wanted to win it. Maybe he didn't want to win Cincinnati, but he wanted to win like a really important match against Novak in a big stage, right? And so I think there needs to be more emphasis on these types of matches. And again, right, Tennis Channel just screwed us by putting on a challenger first round
Timbuktu
match.
Women's Challenger.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, right? Instead of the finals. So that was egregious, and obviously had to find other ways to stream that. So that was an L.
Yeah, 100%. So two things. Totally agreed. Hard court season has been fascinating to watch. It it really seemed this year like the players haven't really been on hard courts that much. For some reason, I feel like I've always had this impression that it's mostly hard. And I think the clay and grass court season just felt so much longer to me this year. That yeah, I mean, you see a guy like Ben Shelton kind of like he's finally finding his legs again because he's been on surfaces that he's only been playing on, once in his life. Um, and then second comment was I not sure if we want to go down this rabbit hole, but I think the ATP released some news about a new kind of economic structure. And I know like
Yeah.
the streaming is a big part of revenue. And, when you mentioned Tennis Channel's egregious mistakes, as we've seen this whole year, and streaming in general just becoming, this price gouging, sickening market,
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a topic that's interesting to discuss.
Yeah, no, I mean for sure. We can dive into that. Like I was just reading about the baseline project. I mean, I'm not gonna be like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it and say like I have, super research thorough opinions right here. Like we're just kind of letting them fly from what's going on, what tennis needs to do to kind of improve them. But it is, I mean, basically there's like a couple principles, right? Like if you're depending on where you're ranked, you're gonna get ATP will cover deficits in prize money based on your ranking, right? And they're going to cover certain like expenses, and if you're injured, they're also cover up some expenses too, right? And so it serves as like a really good base for a lot of the guys who are struggling to pay expenses and who are like grinding in the top 300 350. I think the fundamental question, which we'll probably get to in a subsequent pod, is like how tennis can grow the pie, right? And like just get more money to come to them so that they can like redistribute it better amongst the players. Because I mean, if you look at, there's no reason why like a top 350 player should not be able to like live on tour, right? You look at the top 350 players in like baseball, like NBA, like any other sport, right? Like for a sport that's as viewed as tennis, like I think we can make that happen. And I mean, the NBA, for example, right? Like 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have the same amount of money that ATP did, the ATP or that they have now, right? And so there's definitely ways to grow the pie. But yeah, we got to figure out what those ways are.
Yeah, and I'll say I'm by no means an expert here, but I am kind of classically trained in economics. And when you are schooled you know, in America, and focus on the benefits of free market capitalism and these kinds of things, you automatically kind of get triggered by any notion of redistribution of wealth that is not based on merit. Needless to say, I think I am kind of starting to temper my views in general on I still consider myself, I've said this before, kind of a staunch capitalist, but I think there are dangers of capitalism too, and we're seeing this play out right now in terms of totally unequal distribution of wealth, and just says in the Bible, right? Like, to those who have, more will be given; to those who don't, more will be taken. I think, like, if you continue to play this out, I think this distribution of wealth is just very unhealthy, and there are tons of externalities as a result of it. And I think we see that in tennis too, where you know I think it's really tough to justify why someone like Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal are quite literally almost billionaires, right? And you've got guys like Vasil, guys outside the top 300 who are good players.
Yeah.
And if you put the spotlight on them and like
Yeah.
televised a few of their matches, like they would be generating revenue.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. To me, it's about what you just said, which is increasing the size of the pie and
Yeah.
not redistribution. I will also say, as I'm reading this right now, this program helps nobody that needs help. It's completely focused on the top 250, right? So the benefits go to, and it continues to actually, if you look at it, it continues to redistribute wealth unequally because it benefits the top 100 more than the top than those between 150 and 250. So I'm a bit skeptical. I think it's a good kind of start, but there's a long way to go, I think, before we see uh, what I would consider fair distribution. I also think things like this will increase, if they're done correctly, they will increase the the size of the pie just by virtue of attracting more people to tennis. Because right now, as you know, coming from the certain background that we come from, immigrant parents, athletics is too risky of a career choice. And I think to mitigate that risk and by providing potentially guaranteed income it's interesting. It's interesting.
No, 100%. There's a lot that you talked about that I think we can touch on. I think first thing that was pretty interesting. This is kind of like a completely, oh no. So the first thing I was gonna say was like, as I mentioned, right, like I've been watching a lot of US Open qualifying, and third round matches, I mean first round, second round, like all three of the matches, right? Still really high level. I guarantee you, like the casual fan won't be able to even like the experienced fan, right? There's minor differences that you're seeing from a like just a viewing standpoint between those guys and the guys who are guaranteed like main entry, right? Like I think obviously like the top 10, top 50, right? They're elite. But the guys who are like trying to battle and find it, like make their way through qualifying, it's really good tennis. It's really good tennis. It's also really close tennis, right? I mean,
Yep.
I'm seeing a lot of 7-6 in the thirds, like three set battles. Go for it.
I wanted to call out Maxime Cressy, who has
Yeah.
literally lost like two or three
Yep.
quality matches, 7-6 in the third in a row.
Yeah.
Like those are the types. I mean, Maxime Cressy is like a top 100 player. Those are the types
Yep.
of matches you're going to get in qualies. So
Yep.
sorry to cut you off, but
No,
I agree with you.
no, and that's an excellent call because I actually was watching that second round qualifying match today between him and is a Belgian guy. His name's like Dejoum or something like that. And I mean that was really, really good. It was full of drama, right? Like 10-point tiebreaker in the third set. The Belgian guy was up 9-6 or 9-7 or something
Oh
like
my
that.
God.
Went to 9-all, and then he ended up winning those 2 points in order to close it out. I mean, that's literally like drama you can't get that often, right? And I mean, if matches like if you have like coverage on those qualifying matches, you're gonna get viewership. Like that's high quality tennis, and the fact that it's actually a like crime that people can watch those qualifying matches for free, like not even like $20. You can watch it for free. That's ridiculous, and I think that could be a potential opportunity that the ATP kind of spotlights because I think qualifying is great and I think it's like a great way to guarantee like one of those 16 entrants to the main draw, but there could be more. I think there could be more done there.
Yep. And I think more broadly, just looking at the streaming industry in general, I think where we're going is perfect price discrimination, right? So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a price for every channel for every event, and you're going to pay, I want to watch this qualifying match, I'm going to pay 10 cents. I'm going to watch the US Open final, that might be $5. It's all going to be, I think where we're going is more of a pay-per-view system. And to your point, I think that just drastically increases the size of the pie. And the guys who need the help are the guys outside the top 300. We do not need to give the top 100 an extra 200K. Like,
Yeah.
I think they're all right. You don't need to give 100 to 175 an extra 100K.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all great, but again, it's kind of like a reverse progressive tax. And I don't think it's the money's going to the right people. But then I do want to admit that there are like misincentives everywhere too, right? Where now, okay, the second pillar of the baseline project focuses on injury protection. So now, how about this? What if I game the system, crack the top 500, and now I'm guaranteed injury prevention? I don't have to play another match for the rest of the year. These are the types of things that like I think we need to think about and just be aware of, that people are going to try and game the system.
For sure. I mean, one of the things that we haven't talked about, right, is like the thing that I feel like a lot of the top guys talk about as being the most expensive is the travel expenses. It's like traveling from continent to continent, country to country, right, in order to play a lot of the tournaments. I actually think like that the cost of travel, like just airplane fare in general, that should be on the players. But like having a tournament car pick you up and like drive you to the site and whatever, I think that's can be on the tournament, right? And I actually think if I remember reading correctly, there were some expenses that were covered now by tournaments, like racket stringing. I think everything else should be taken care of by the ATP. Like there's got to be like a site that produces like free food for the players, like they can get their racket strung for free. Like I think the players should only have to pay for like just airfare, and like their whatever they pay their coaches. So like there can be tournament hotels, there can be tournament stringing, like all of that tournament food, like, and you can get a per diem. Like that should be like, I think that's the ideal state for what players should have.
Yep. But now on the flip side, I think if we really wanted to start a revolution, right? Everyone's got a phone on them, everyone's got a camera. You turn on Facebook Live and you stream your Stanford #6 match. I mean, people are going to tune in for that kind of stuff. So
For sure.
this is where it starts getting a bit interesting in the world, in the modern world we live in, where, I think if this is where kind of copyright comes in and like the
Yeah.
laws come in, but right now they're only benefiting these companies that are lining their pockets with more money. So
For sure.
it's not fair one way or another, I think. And I think we need to make a decision, which direction are we going to go? Are we going to be totally outsourced?
Yeah.
Or are we going to like, be highly regulated? And I think towing that middle ground line ends up just creating, I think, situations like this, which don't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah. This might be a completely radical idea. This is something I was just randomly thinking about. What do you think? What if there's a world in which ATP player or like the ATP had contracts with like top 150 or top 200 players, right? Like what would that look like? And do you think there's a world in which that actually makes sense and is like sustainable long term? Given your background, this is like a purely hypothetical. Like I haven't done any like thinking on this.
Yeah, contracts are really interesting because it does kind of make sense to me. I mean, the revenue model is pretty guaranteed, right? They have like streaming
Yeah.
services locked in and they have ticket revenue locked in. And I don't think that, I'm sure it goes up every year, but I'm sure it's predictable at the same time.
Yeah.
And it kind of basically what it does is it just it also makes their costs completely predictable as well.
Yeah. Like fixed. Yeah.
So, I think it makes sense, but again, I feel like the beauty of tennis too is that you eat
Yeah.
what you kill.
Yeah. You kill. It's
And
a dog eat dog sport. Yeah.
exactly. And I don't know if we want to necessarily take that away completely.
Yeah.
For me, the solution is more of like a UBI. Like, why are we giving the top 100 a different amount from the top 300? Let's line their pockets all with like an extra 50K, something to take the burden off. Maybe all the way up through the top 500. I think top 500 is where like you're legitimately good.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Omni Kumar. This is a rando off the streets of Mountain View, um, who went to Duke, 6-6 freshman year. I don't even know if he started. 380 in the world, beats Bocic Van de Zandschulp. Like, that's a dude who should probably, and he committed to tennis. Like he didn't
Yeah.
get, I don't think he got his degree. Like that's a dude who I think should be getting 50K a year or something like that to ease the burden of how difficult the sport is.
Yep, 100%. As you can tell, we've done probably some initial amount of thinking on this, but there's more to be done here, and I'm sure we'll have a pod where we talk deeply about this and talk about the revenue and where the money's coming from. Because actually, if you'll casual search, you won't be able to find that information that easily. It's actually quite you have to go deep into this, and I think there's certainly some stuff that can be done. So we'll see how it continues to progress.
Yep. I think the bottom line, though, maybe we can close with this,
Yeah,
is just like, what are you trying to optimize for, right? The ATP
yeah,
needs to determine that. What is the definition of of like a professional tennis player that deserves to be
yes,
compensated? I think that's the primary question to be answered. To me, I think that answer is top 500, but it may vary. Like, I think that's up for debate. I
yeah.
think top 500 to 1,000 is still like, okay, that's someone from college who maybe like trying things out, getting a few points at futures. To me, that's not necessarily good enough. But and then of course the next question is like, how do you actually compensate these
Yeah.
players
Yeah.
in a way that's sustainable, in a way that doesn't create externalities, in a way that's fair,
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't have like ripple effects and consequences and misincentives.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll
No,
get into it.
yeah, we'll get into it. And I think, there's some ideas we haven't even talked about here that I think could be could be great, right? So we'll see. We'll talk about this more on a subsequent podcast. Actually, I just wanted to jump real quick back to what you were talking about Omni. It's funny. I mean, again, I watched that whole match with Botic. I watched that whole match with who's the first? Oh, he played Rinderknech first round. I mean, two big time win. That's like two top 100 guys. He's beating at 5'7". So quick tangent on this. He's actually, I think he's like my brother's year or like a year above or under. Like he's in that same age group. So I actually saw this kid play a tournament L2
Wow.
Nationals in Arizona in
Wow.
2017 or 2018, right after I had graduated. And so I think he might have been a sophomore or freshman, right, whatever my brother was, right? And I remember seeing this kid and I was like, who the fuck hits two? Because if you notice, right, like he has two hands on the racket
Yep.
at contact and
Yep.
then he follows through with one hand. I was
Bjorn
like,
Borg, baby.
yeah, I was like, how is this guy like keeping it in, and how are people not attacking more? Because he was so solid. His forehand really spinny, really hard to attack, and at like 5'7", 5'8", he had a really explosive serve. So he had a very unorthodox game, but I was like, this kid is like clearly very very good because I think he rolled through that tournament dropping like one set at max. So I saw him during that time in Arizona. And so it was so funny to me. I was telling my brother, I was like, dude, this kid is now like in 250s. That's absolutely absurd. I haven't seen this guy since we saw him in Arizona. And yeah, I mean it was a big time tournament for him. I think the one thing I'll say about what I saw is like it was clear that against Rinderknech and Botic that both of them were going to his backhand heavily. I don't think he has the time to hit two hands off with that grip or with the way he hits it off that backhand wing, and he was chipping a lot of them. But it's funny because against Cerundolo in the third round, or round of 16, or whichever round it was, right? He actually had a lot more time to hit his backhand, and that's very interesting to me because Cerundolo is primarily like a clay court player, right? Or hit friends Juan Manuel Cerundolo is primarily a clay court player. So I'm interested to see on clay how Omni's game works because he might have the time to basically slice and like hit through the balls as well, right? Which gives him the opportunity to be more competitive in matches. Unfortunately, like Cerundolo just like kind of ground him down, so there was not much he could do. He wasn't getting free points, and he was going for like a lot more in my opinion. But um, he's got a game style that I think could propel him to like top 250, top 200, and I think we're seeing that now.
And this is Francesco's younger
Yep,
brother, right?
Francisco's
Not
younger brother.
Francesco's younger brother.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Who's got a pretty similar game, right?
He's a grinder, left-hander though, so
Mm,
he's got a little bit more on the serve, and he's more of a grinder than Francisco is. I think Francisco is like takes the ball or is like
oh yeah.
capable of driving through.
He rips his
Yeah,
forehand.
he rips the
But
forehand. Yeah,
yeah, I mean to your points about Omni, I do wonder, obviously he's a straight baller at 5'7". He's like this dude is he's a miracle worker right now with what he's doing against these dudes. I mean, Arthur Rinderknecht literally looked like a different species of
Yeah,
human when
yeah,
they shook hands.
yeah,
Um, and I think this goes back to kind of earlier points. We've said it before, but like this is a guy who, because of his size, he has had to adapt his game a certain way, and you can tell he knows how to gut out wins that
yeah.
you know other players who maybe have the athleticism and the cleanliness of game don't necessarily know how to do as well. I do wonder, and I don't want to maybe discredit what he did, but I do wonder how quickly people are going to figure out his game.
Came out. Yeah,
Because he is a bit smaller, doesn't have like the huge weapons. I watched actually a video of him a few months ago against Winston Dew, the 4-5 guy who just plays all these random pros down in LA, I think.
yeah,
And it was really tough to tell that Omni Kumar was a professional in that video. Obviously, he was not trying very hard, but I was like, dude, the fact that he can even play at this level, being on
yeah,
the low side, I was like,
yeah,
uh, it it's crazy. I mean, the way he can
yeah,
elevate his game, manage pace. I think one thing I took away from that video was he strings his racket at like 46 or 47, which
yeah.
I just wish I had done as a junior. I think that's part of like the whole obsession with like 58 and high tension and 60 plus tension. And just that was for the serve and volleyers and stuff.
That's for guys who
Today's
can
game is
generate. Yeah, that's for guys who can generate pace on their own. For like the smaller guys that like, I mean, yeah, same thing. I used to string. I mean, I think stringing my racket lower, like then, yeah, it would have made a massive difference.
Yeah, and he can just totally absorb and counterpunch with pace. But
So,
yeah, I get the sense that like he maybe he is a top 250 player, top
yeah,
200. I think it's going to be really hard to break through. I think people will figure out his game extremely quickly, and the backhand, even in that Winston Do video, like he said, his both sides are solid. Um, I'm not a fan of the Bjorn Borg like 70s 80s backhand in 2023.
yeah. I watched the exact same video, and I saw that I heard that comment as well, and I was like, okay, on some level, he's probably saying that just because in any
Yeah, there
case,
was
some
like some
sickos,
insecurity.
yeah,
Yeah,
some sickos like us like find that video and are like, oh shit, go to the backhand. But
yeah,
I mean, just from what I watched, right? Like, yeah, pros are gonna figure that out like very quickly, and it's also just like his court coverage is going to be very difficult, right? Like Noah Rubin is 5'9", and one of the things he said when he like quit was just like, at the end of the day, I'm just like really small. I can't
yep,
cover the entire court like super well. I mean, in recent memory, they were one of the only smaller players who's able to like become like maintain a living on the professional tour and like been good is Diego Schwartzman. I
yeah.
can't think of any
And
any
then
others.
Ferrer before that, but like even
Yeah,
then, the game has changed since then, right?
yeah,
And like
yeah,
maybe Ferrer wouldn't have been as good today
yeah,
as he was back then. No dissing
yeah,
on him, no dissing on any of these guys. I just feel
yeah.
like it's respect that they've even gotten to this level. I think
Oh
that's my
yeah,
view. But like, dude, you're playing guys who are 6'5", 6'6", like
yeah,
they're just gonna bully you at the end of the day.
yeah.
Like, who am I gonna put my money on at Wimbledon and on the fast hard courts with these balls that keep getting lighter and faster? Like, I'm gonna put my money on the guy who can rip.
It's funny because when you say like Rinderknecht looked like a completely different player, Botic's handshake was very frosty. He was so mad. I was like,
As
yeah,
you
I feel
should
for
be,
you.
dude.
I feel for you, dude. Like, yeah, if I was as good as I am and I lost to someone I didn't think I should lose, who has like kind of an unorthodox game, yeah, I'd feel some type of way about it too. So that
That it
was that
reminds
was
me of like one of those handshakes between like an elite 13-year-old and like a
yeah,
16 or 17-year-old who just gets waxed.
yeah,
And it's just like, oh man, that's pretty embarrassing. But it happens,
yeah.
man. Tennis is
No, yeah,
it's
a
an
hundred
equal
percent.
playing field when you step on the court.
100% it happens. I got tooled by Jensen Brooksby when I was 20 and he was like 15. And obviously by 15 he was already like really good, right? And I was like, dude, this guy was like barely like standing over the net and he just didn't miss a ball. Like come on. I was so mad.
Crazy. But I think Jensen Brooksby, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a great analogy of like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's happening right now with him, but like I
Wrist
feel
injury.
player wrist injury. I feel like before or maybe it was the injury, but like before he got injured, it felt like players were already starting to figure him out. And like
Yeah,
maybe he's got that dog in him that keeps him in the top 50, but like,
yeah.
dude, I feel in today's game you just gotta have weapons.
Yeah, no, I mean it's like kind of what you've talked about off there, right? Like your ceiling is almost capped to an extent a little bit if you have holes in your game or if the core of your game is like a counter punching, right? Like
Yeah.
or unless you're Andy, unless you're Andy Murray or unless you're Novak, yeah, it's going to be tough, right? And like both of them, obviously Andy and Novak are like all core players at this point,
Yep.
right? Like they're not they've improved so much since when they first came on tour. But like that core, like at the Alex de Minaurs of the world, right? You're gonna find ways to get like people are gonna find ways to beat you, especially if they have weapons, right? And
Yep.
that's the tough part about it.
But keep fucking chasing those balls, grinders. That's all I can
Tra-
say.
Traveling the world chasing a fuzzy yellow ball.
Yep.
Cool. That was an awesome little tangent. I think like the maybe let's go back to Toronto real quick. Yannick with the big time result, winning Toronto. I think he kind of
Bro, you and Yannick, you should just
I just
marry him,
want
bro.
I just wanted to shout him out for what he did. Yes, I recognize that he had an easy draw. Yes, I recognize that he beat Alex de Minaur, but I mean, I just got to show love to the man. You know, he's just working on his game and he's balling out.
Bro, so talk to me. Was it really that one time we watched him in Indian Wells where he hit second serves after his match where you're just like that obsessed with him?
Let me paint a picture for the listeners, right? Like, so this is what happened. He was playing Laszlo Diera
I'm gonna have
in
to mute.
he was playing Laszlo Diera in the second round or first round or whatever, right? In Indian Wells 2 years ago, and 4-3. I mean, pretty easy work, but like, I mean, if he was playing bad, he obviously would have lost, right? Like, so he had to put in some effort.
It was like a
Out,
54-minute match for context. Yeah, it was a
yeah,
4-3, but it was like very routine.
yeah, very routine, very routine. But like, my point was just like Laszlo Diera is no like scrub, right? Like he's still a good player, and Yannick just like tooled him, right? So then he like without even like signing autographs, no like press conference, no nothing, just walks straight over to the practice courts right next to the stadium and just starts serving for like 30, 45 minutes. And dude, I mean that's the passion for the game those are the intangibles that I like to see, you know. Obviously, like there's players who have done this before. There's players who did it as well during that tournament. But I mean, that's the type of inspiration and hard work that I really enjoyed seeing. You know, so that's why I'm definitely like rising on him quite highly. And that's why I get a lot of shit for it. But yeah, the
You do,
guy's a
and
dog.
I think you will, man. I think I think you take it to a different extreme. You might be his
I
biggest fan.
Hey, I mean the guy's a baller, and as you know, I'm not gonna preview our U.S. Open draw analysis, but I was definitely considering having him upset Carlos in the quarterfinals.
Oh my God, that is
Yeah,
egregious.
yeah, but then the light came to me. Yeah, I mean that was the only thing I wanted to cover on that segment. Nothing really that I can
Really
think
not
about.
like the greatest match played in the last year and a half or something
Yeah,
like that with
exactly.
Carlos and Djokovic.
I mean, we just have to like. I mean, we're an equal opportunity podcast, all right. We talk about everyone. We don't have to talk about Novak and Carlos all the time,
That's true. That's
because
true.
we cover them all ad nauseum. But yeah, nothing I really want to say about Toronto. Yannick's the man. That's all. And big win by Tommy. Honestly, taking out Carlos. I'm
Yeah, and
quite
then almost
surprised.
beating him again.
Yeah, almost beating him again, up a break in the first set, right? But yeah, we can move on to Cincinnati. Talk to me about Novak and Carlos. What you saw of what you watched.
So, I mean, I didn't get to watch the match live, and I
Yeah,
obviously saw the group chat explode. This is the greatest match we've seen, better than Wimbledon. And my first take was like, that's cap. Like,
to be
you
clear,
guys,
greatest match we've seen this year.
true, true,
Yeah,
true. But again, I think my point was that I read that and I thought it was a bit of cap.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then I watched the highlights and I realized it was not.
yeah,
This was a match with literally everything, right?
yeah,
Carlos up. I literally was like, what's going on? When it was first set down 4-2 in the second, I was like, bro, this is not Novak. He's like keeling over. He's tired. The heat
Yeah.
in Cincinnati, of all places, is getting to him.
No.
And then, like, I mean, the supreme leader that he is just turns the match on its head, chokes in the third. I don't know how he got his shit together in the breaker, and then Carlos's hand cramps. I mean, like it just had every single aspect to it. There were multiple match championship points saved. Um, Insanity. I mean, it's just to your point. It's just too bad that it happened to happen at Cincinnati of all places, right? Instead of if this was in New York or you know Wimbledon. I mean, it was insane. But I will say I still don't know if I can say it was a better match than Wimbledon, just because like that situation is. I mean, you just can't
It's
compare the
Wimbledon.
two. But yeah, best of
Yeah.
five. Like you're
Yeah.
playing on grass, it's obviously going to be a different style. Like you're not going to have longer rallies. You still might be hitting the ball as cleanly, and but still unbelievable match.
It
Maybe
was
the
it's
best Masters 1000 match for sure of the last couple of
yeah.
years.
For sure. I can't think of very many that were as good as that. I mean, 4 hours for a three setter, that's like almost unheard of, right? I will say to your point on Novak healing over, I was quite surprised to see that because I mean, his fitness is remarkable, as we all know, right? But like even in the first set, he was dying. I remember looking at like the temp. I think the problem was it was like the heat of Australia with the humidity of like New York. Like
Yep.
it was like 100 degrees and humid, and that was just taking the life out of Novak. It's funny because towards the end of the match, obviously, right? Like Novak looked like the fresher player, and I think as the hours kind of went along, it got cooler, and he was able to like he was hydrated enough that he didn't cramp, and Carlos cramped before, but that's the second time we've seen Carlos cramp against Novak for obviously very different reasons. But it just
Yep.
goes to show like how much energy you have to exert when you're playing against Novak, right? Like mental and emotional. I mean, the stream I was watching was fortunate enough to pick up what Juan Carlos Ferrero was saying. Not like not that I understood anything he was saying. But he was yapping every single point to Carlos. Like it was genuinely almost like a team effort because he was literally talking to him every single point and saying like do this, do that, do this, do that. Like let's go. We're here, right? And so it was a brutal match. And I think it's actually remarkable that Novak was able to come back on two occasions, right? When he was down 4-2 in the second set and when Carlos was playing incredible and when he lost that championship point and it went to a
Yep.
tiebreaker. I think that mental resilience, I don't know how he does it, but it was ridiculous.
And I mean, you don't see Novak ripping his shirt off very often
Yeah.
either. So that tells
Yeah.
you what it meant to both the guys. I like the team effort comment that you made because not to go
Yeah.
off another tangent, but just
Yeah.
citing the Andy Roddick
Oh
GQ
yeah.
article that you just sent,
Yeah.
like I think that's the best analogy for tennis that I've heard, like an
Yeah.
F1 team, right? And
Yeah.
the fact that you've got this pit crew, it just happens to not be in the spotlight. But I like that mentality of even though you're kind of alone out there, like there's so much shit that people don't realize you have to have a team for. And they get no credit a lot of times.
No, for sure. And they're just taking like the brunt of the abuse. I mean,
Yes,
Novak was yelling at Goran in his box like the entire time. Obviously, we see like Rublev losing it and yelling at yelling at people the entire time. So it's not easy to be in the box, and to an extent, it's almost easier to be the one playing the match as opposed to being the one watching the match, right? Because you're so invested in it that it's hard to like keep your cool on in those moments.
totally, totally. And then you see Kiggs too as another example of someone who berates his box.
I didn't want to bring it up, but yeah, no, we see Kicks do it a lot. Yeah, no, that was the only thing I had on Cincinnati as far as like tactical shit. Like the only thing I saw that was a little shaky was like I saw Novak miss his backhand quite a bit, but I mean it's Novak. He's gonna get that right. There's no way he doesn't get that right for the U.S. Open. So
Yep.
that was the only thing that I saw quite interesting. And I also thought it was interesting that Novak was serving and volleying a lot. I saw him come to net
Hmm.
so many times, and you forget it's like what we were talking about in the last episode, right? Like that build your own tennis player, and you have Medvedev's volleys at like $1. Like just because these guys don't come in they know when to come in, right? Like they're gonna get easy enough balls that they know what to do to their ball. Like they know what to do. And I would not hit a volley, like I would not hit a ball like right to Novak, right? Like because he's gonna put that away and he knows what to do there. So yeah.
I was almost, I think my main comment mid-match was, I cannot believe Carlos is going to beat Novak out of all five of his matches. The only match that's going to be in straight sets is
Straight
Novak. And
sets.
of course
Yeah.
he turned it around, but it was a brutal week for Carlos.
Yeah.
I
Tough week.
mean, Purcell, Hurkacz, uh,
Tommy.
Tommy,
Yeah.
I mean, got skunked in the second set breaker too by Tommy. That's
Down a
pretty,
break. Down a break in
pretty
the first set too.
pretty interesting results. I mean, maybe this is a good place to pivot
Yeah.
to the Open now, because this is where everything's going to come together. The last thing I'll say is Djokovic, he's in America for the first time in,
Yeah.
is it 4 years?
I want to say
2019.
for 2019, right? 2 years, yeah.
So
No, wait, we're in
well,
2023.
four,
Wow,
right? Because yeah,
four.
he's been
Yeah.
banned
I
for a
thought we were in
while. So
2021. Not that.
dude,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't blame you, man.
Yeah.
But he is hungry as hell. I mean,
Yeah.
he was so laser focused this whole week to win this tournament. I think that's why he got so emotional at the end.
Yeah.
I'm expecting, I don't think the mission's over until he wins the US Open and extends the lead further. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think he's resting on anything right now.
Segue question before we talk about like maybe some of the popcorn matches of the US Open and what we think is gonna break down. If you're Juan Carlos Ferrero, what are you telling Carlos going to the US Open after this loss?
Oh man, I mean, I I'm no coach, but look, this is, they're neck and neck. Like I don't think there's anything else to say. Like he could have easily closed out that match in straight sets. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I mean, we're gonna have chances. Like there's the next few years, I think it's gonna be Carlos and Joker, at least the next 6 or 7 Grand Slams, and just keep doing what you're doing. I don't think it needs to be more complex than that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Stick to the aggressive tennis that's won you matches, that's helped him beat you or helped you beat him in Wimbledon. Uh, and yeah, keep playing aggressive because you
Yep.
should not like you know the levels there. You know you can beat him. Now it's in the head of just making sure that you're confident you can do it.
And keep up that trend from Wimbledon after losing in the French Open because of that excess energy outside of
Yeah,
points. Like keep that mentality up. Keep smiling, keep having fun, like
yeah,
keep remembering this is just a game. Don't get too uptight because I think that's what causes the cramps for him. It's more mental.
yeah,
And then he's gonna have his chances. I mean, if he's again, even in this match, if his hand doesn't cramp, he wins this match. So potentially, arguably, right? But either
yeah.
way,
He had a
it's
great
tight.
chance. Yeah,
He has a
yeah,
chance to win the match. So I think the main thing for Carlos is if he doesn't cramp over 5 sets, I think it's a coin toss with Joker.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, hopefully, if the streams can pick up on Juan Carlos Ferrero's thing, we can get some translation this time and see if he aligns with us. So,
I'll have the
um,
Spanish English dictionary ready.
exactly.
That might not
Cool.
help though with the list.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Maybe do you think a good place to transition to is the U.S. Open draw just got released yesterday. And there's some spicy matchups. You want to maybe talk about some of the matchups that caught your eye? I can start off honestly.
Kick
If
it off.
cool, I think there's a couple of really good matchups that caught my eye. I think the first one is Zverev Vukic. Vukic is obviously coming off that Atlanta Open final, and Zverev starting to come into form and reach the semis of Cincinnati. So he's clearly playing a lot better 1 year removed from the ankle injury, and I think that's a really like good first round matchup.
Sidetrack on Zverev. Does he have a chain per X?
What does that mean?
Chain around his neck per X? Like what's with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
what's he doing with that, man? I don't know how he
He
plays tennis with the fucking diamonds and gold.
he's got like 4 or 5 chains. I'm actually like really impressed. He's able to like. I mean, there's a couple of guys who play with this, and you can see it like flying up potentially hitting. I remember I tried playing with the chain once when I was like 13 years old because I was like, yeah, I'm about that.
Yeah, the
And
swag.
yeah, I'm about the swag. And then like I remember hitting a forehand and it just like hit me in the nose, and I was like, this is stupid. I'm not playing with this. Yeah, I don't know how he does it, but you know what Prime used to say, look good, feel good, play good. So maybe it's the same mentality.
Maybe he needs to get rid of the trains and learn how to stand within 5 feet of the baseline.
Yeah,
I wonder if
I
that's
think
affecting him,
that's what it is.
other than the
It's
longest strokes of all time, too.
yeah,
He
longest
takes,
strokes.
I remember watching him on the Indian Wells practice court, and this
Yeah,
guy is like, his stroke is so long. He's almost hitting the back fence. Like he can't play on a normal court because
yeah.
his racket is touching the back fence every single time on both sides.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because I mean, just going back to Omni real quick, one of the things that I thought was really interesting was he's a foot beyond the baseline on first serve returns
Wow,
against like Renderknecht, and on second serve returns, he's on the baseline at minimum or a foot inside the baseline. I
that's
understand
Twitch.
why. Yeah, I understand why. He's probably natural athleticism, natural hand-eye coordination, but I think it's also like he's small, right? And he can't cover he if he goes 10 feet beyond the
Yeah,
baseline,
can't
he's
cover the
not gonna
angles.
yeah, he can't cover the angles. He can't cover the like slice all the way out wide on the due side and the tee, right? And so um yeah, that's tough. So but Zverev is different. He's 6'6". He's
He's
maybe
a
he's got
Greek god.
Greek yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was a good popcorn match that I saw. What do you any we can alternate and talk about different matches. Anything else? Anything you saw?
I'll call out the one that you mentioned,
Okay.
the two Yannicks,
Yeah.
Hoffman and Center.
Oh,
Maybe not. Jesus, relax. Um, Maybe not a popcorn match, but I think Sinner is gonna dominate. But Yannick's had a pretty solid year. I think
yeah.
he's had his best year to date, so
Yeah.
could be interesting. Guys to watch out for. Max Purcell has obviously been very, very solid.
Yeah.
Uh, Mickelson Vignolas is kind of an interesting one in my opinion.
Yeah.
Kind of veteran versus
Up and
just
down.
turned pro. Jerry Van Ash, that section of the draw is pretty interesting. And then I
Yeah.
know there was the main one I thought that was fascinating to me was Zhang versus JJ Wolf. I think to me that's like the most equally matched, interesting first round.
Yeah. No, it's a really good first round, and I saw Zizhen play last year against Tim Van Rijthoven, and Zizhen had like five or he had a couple match points against Rijthoven and didn't wasn't able to close it out. So I think he'll be extra motivated this time around. I mean, his serve is an absolute cannon, and I think it'll be a really good first round. That's also one I saw. I think another popcorn match, Bublik and Team. I don't wanna like preview my round of 16 predictions too much, but I've got Bublik winning that match. I think he's got a great
Wow.
chance to yeah, I think he's got a great chance to go deep. I have him as a dark horse actually because I think that section of the draw is pretty wide open for him to for his game style to make some damage. So
And he's a
uh,
giant killer on a fast court. So
yeah,
we saw what he's done on the grass. He is
exactly.
absolutely dangerous. Uh,
Yeah,
Mackie Felix is another one that I could see an upset there. Mackie is a solid dude. Felix is the opposite of that. So I could see Mackie coming through that one, but that at the very least, I think it's interesting. Um, and then I think I saw one more I want to call out Tsitsipas Raonic, right? Raonic
that's a
is
good
coming
one.
off a couple big wins, obviously huge server. Great to see him back on tour.
Yeah.
And Tsitsipas kind of maybe struggling a little bit. So
Yeah.
we'll see what ends up happening there.
Yep. And the last match I wanted to call out before going to our kind of next topic is Umber Berrettini and Rublev Rusevori. Those are two spicy matchups that I saw. I think Berrettini with that great run in Wimbledon, I think he's trying to make another push, and his game bodes really well on the hard courts. And Rublev Rusevori, repeat of the Cincinnati Open first round where Rusevori won. So uh, another really good first round. So I think the next one I wanted to talk about, which we kind of touched about a little bit, is just like where you see some upset potential or guys who are maybe seeded but are going to fall short of expectations. I'm going to start off right now because I know you're going to take this guy, Felix, dude. Mackey's going to win that. I've got Mackey winning
Love
that
it.
match. Um, I think Mackey had a great Cincinnati or Toronto. He had one of the, yeah, I think it was Toronto because he lost to Fokina in the quarters or something. And so I think he's definitely got to be feeling good going to the Open.
I like that. I gotta call out Foki. You know, I love this guy, but he broke my heart so badly after losing to Runa.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I trust the guy. You know, I mean, like he's so talented, but Giron's solid. This part of the draw is kind of open. I mean, he's got
Yeah.
Tommy in the third round, but like, do I see him getting through? I really hope he does. I'm not 100% sure. Rude's another guy who's been a little bit quiet. I don't know if he's been on the clay court challenger grind or not, but we'll see. We'll see what he can do on the hard courts here. Um, Seb Korda Fucsovics is an interesting first round too.
I got
Seb
Vucevic winning
looked
that match.
Seb looked good. I think he absolutely waxed someone in Winston-Salem, but again, Fucsovics is a tough candidate. I mean, I don't know if that guy's on roids or not, but he's not an easy character to get through in a first round match. So that could be an interesting upset, and also just being the 31st seed, like you know, I don't think he's done a whole lot this year. Um, I was impressed with Hijikata in Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
He's
No,
got game.
he's got game. Quick side note on Seb Korda. He pulled out of the Winston-Salem Open today against Chorich or no, Lehechka because of an ankle injury he sustained yesterday. So he might not even be able to play for the Open. But even if he does, I do have Vucevic winning that match. I think, yeah, as you said, Vucevic has got game, and I think Seb's been a little shaky since Australia. So I like Vucevic to win that match. Cool. Do you want to? I think maybe a good place to kind of finish off is like predictions, like in the round of 16 onwards, leading up to the eventual winner, and that'll kind of give us some insight on who we think like dark horses might be. Um, if you don't mind, I can kick it off by giving you my round of 16. I Yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say one more thing.
Yeah,
Just in terms of dark horses, I think Gael Monfils is kind of a dark horse. That section
yeah,
of the draw too. Just looking at that area, I mean, we're talking Rublev, Rinderknecht, Berrettini, Humbert, Schwartzman is in that part. It's a tough, equally matched part of the draw,
yeah,
but like honestly, any one of these eight
yeah.
guys can get through it.
For sure. For sure. And as you'll see by my prediction for the round of 16, I've got a surprising candidate.
Okay,
Cool. Let's start from the top then. So round of 16, I've got Alcaraz making it through against Talon Griekspoor. I think
shocker.
Griekspoor yeah. Yeah. I think Griekspoor's got a I don't think Cam Norrie's gonna make it through to the round of 16. I think he hasn't been playing that well, and I think Griekspoor's aggressive kind of tennis will be able to help him get to the round of 16. I've got Zverev and Yannick making it to the round of 16. I've got Medvedev, and in that section we were just talking about, right? I've got Yibing Wu making it to the round of 16. I think that,
Whoa.
yeah, I think he's got it great. So this is his road, right? He's got Dusan Lajovic first round, which I think he'll Yibing can win. Then I think he's got Alex Mickelson next, and then I think he's got yeah, I know. I think he's got Nicola Jerry next,
De
and
Minaur first, right?
oh yes, sorry, De Minaur, yes,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then
And then the
Jerry.
third round, Jerry or
Yep,
Mickelson or Vinales
exactly.
or Van Ash. Yeah, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. That's a fascinating call.
Yeah, I think he's got. I mean, this is like he's the most aggressive and like the best combination of aggressive and like good, right? Out of all those guys, I think he's got the most complete game, and so that's why I think he's got the chance to. I think Alex can be like pushed on the hard courts if you have an aggressive game style, which is why I like Yibing to do it. Cool. I've got Yibing playing Medvedev, and then in the next section, I've got Kachanov playing Berrettini, actually. I'm calling Berrettini to make it through this section. I know you're not a
Wow.
I know you're not a fan of. I know you think Berrettini's got that one-dimensional game, but I like his chances to. I think it's like you said, right? It's open for people to for anyone to take, and I just happen to have Berrettini. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was like Rublev or Monfils or whoever, right? I'm
We
just
might
gonna
have
back.
to make some bets, man. I think
Yeah,
we're gonna have like opposite draws, but keep going.
draws. Cool. So that's the top half. Bottom half, I've got Casper against Big Foe.
Casper.
Yeah. I actually do, dude. I don't think his section of the draw is that like
It's not that good, but
it's not that good.
Casper, dude.
I mean, yeah, but at the end of the day, this is the same guy who made the finals last year. Like
Yep.
I'm gonna back him. So we got Casper against Big Foe. We got
Yep.
Tommy against Bublik, and that was kind of the thing that I was talking about,
Spicy.
right? Like, yeah, he's gonna. I think Bublik's got a great chance to make it through, upsetting Holger, who hasn't been playing, who's like a little cold coming uh into the Open, and then we've
That
got
is a
you.
stacked section too, though.
That's a
Karatsev
stacked section.
Lehechka. How did I
Yeah.
not see that first round too?
Yep.
Jesus.
That's a tough one as well, right? And I mean that section's brutal, but I think Bublik's yeah, I've got Bublik making it through that section. I've got Eubanks and Fritz. I'm gonna back Eubanks
Let's go.
to beat Stefanos and make it through. And then on the bottom section, I mean, there's a lot of qualifiers in this section, so I think this is Francisco Cerundolo versus Novak in the round of 16. It's a really good chance, or it's pretty wide open for Novak to make it through because I mean I've got Felix getting
It's
smoked.
wide open no matter who
Yeah,
you put in front of Novak.
exactly. Let me
Okay.
just yeah let me just go through the rest of predictions and we can talk about anything that comes to your mind. So quarterfinals: Alcaraz, Sinner, Medvedev, Kachanov, Rude, Bublik, and then Fritz and Novak. Semifinals, we've got Alcaraz and Daniil, and then Casper and Novak, and then in the finals, we got Alcaraz and Novak, and I'm gonna back Novak on this one.
Wow. Novak for the
Yeah,
title. Okay.
Novak for the
Okay.
title.
Okay. Let me go
Anything
through.
of anything of what I said that caught your eye, just you disagree with, or anything on your mind?
Yes, I think you're the top of the draw, obviously. I'll go through my round of 16 as well.
Sounds good.
Carlos, um, yeah, no one's gonna, I don't think anyone's gonna really touch him here. Botic, Thompson's been actually playing pretty well. He's not been looking like the blue collar player we thought he was. I don't know about Greek sport, man. I think Fields is a tough first round just for starters. So I'm very uncertain about this, this part of the draw. Am I going to back Cam Nori? No, I can't even do that. Honestly, I would prefer. We all want Kalkinakis to get through this section of the draw, but I might back. The thing with Fields is I've seen him struggle physically, even though he's won that match where he cramped in the finals of his hometown tournament. I think it was Montpellier or something like that. I don't know. I'll go Cam Nori, even though that's a very regrettable decision. Uh, Zverev Dimitrov could be an interesting third round. I'll go Zverev. He's been pretty solid. And then we've got, oh, this is a baffling part of the draw. Wawrinka's been playing pretty well. Does he have the fitness and ability to play 5 sets multiple times? Not sure. Echeverry's more of a clay quarter. I'll go Yannick. That's kind of that's kind of a clean one. Um, Medvedev, that's not too hard, even though Kei Nishikori is lurking. I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this section of the draw. I don't think Wu gets through. It's a brutal section. I might have to go with De Minaur, man. I think he has the hot hand. And then Kachanov is a baller. Is he coming back from injury though?
Yeah, I think he's coming
He's
back from
been
injury.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's been a little bit you know, off the radar, but that this dude gets the quarterfinals of every tournament he plays no matter what. So I think it's hard to go against him.
yeah.
Even though again, her catch is a pretty interesting third round too. Um, and then I'm sorry, I can't do Nori and Berrettini in the fourth round. That would hurt me a lot. So I'll give Rublev the nod. I would love to see JJ get through this. But yeah, maybe I go status quo draw, man, as I'm looking through this. I think Rude gets through. And then Yeah, maybe we're actually not that different on the draw. And then I might even have to back Joker too. I think he's hungry, man. I think
Yeah.
he's back in the US. This is the second tournament back in the US in 4 years. As we said, he's taking it. Sorry.
Sorry, Carlos, but yeah, we've got to go with Novak. I think he wants it so badly, and he's playing
A- And I'm
so
gonna
well.
throw a hot take here too, but I'm just getting this feeling, and maybe I'm gonna regret saying this, but I'm getting this feeling that I don't know if Carlos is actually gonna make the final. I think somewhere along the way, this is a tournament I think where he gets upset. I think he's had such a great year. It's really hard to sustain this level and this focus. I just think this is a tournament where, something weird happens.
Yeah, I mean this is what separates the greats from the guys who are from the rest of the top 10, right? But like he's I think I do think Carlos will still make it through just because I mean even from what we've seen in Cincinnati and Toronto, like he's just playing at like head and shoulders better than everyone else
Yep.
besides Novak, right? And so that's why I like Carlos's
It's
chance to do
irrational.
it.
This feeling is
Yeah.
irrational. He's
I
better than
mean,
everyone else that he's gonna play, but I don't know why I'm getting this feeling.
hey, there's a basis for intuition, so there's no arguments there. Cool, awesome. Yeah, no, I think that kind of sums up what we wanted to talk about. We've got probably a midweek pod where I'll be coming to you live from New York, and we'll chat about what's going on. But yeah, any final words? Anything else we wanted to cover for the greatest slam of the year?
I don't think so. Let's do it. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the courts out there in your boot.
Yeah, no, it'll be tough to walk around, but hey, at least I can buy tickets on the way there instead of queuing. So on that note, I'll get ready to pack, and we'll see you all later. Peace.
Peace.